Let's Chat About It is a thought-provoking podcast where your hosts Lenora Sneva and Max Brown engage in meaningful conversations with everyday individuals about the pivotal moments when they realized they were different. Tune in every Friday for fresh, inspiring videos that delve into personal narratives exploring the diverse journeys of self-discovery. From childhood revelations to adulthood epiphanies, each episode is a celebration of the diverse paths that shape our identities. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform inviting you to connect with others through storytelling.
All right, so welcome back to Let's Chat About It. I'm Lenora Sneva. I'm with Max Brown. Today we have Lea Green on the podcast today. Cannot wait to bring her in. You will just enjoy her so much. But before we bring her in, Max, what is the question of the week?
So our work team, I'm on a group of, it's a unit of 4. I'm the only male on the group. And there may or may not be some, I believe they're called Swifties. Swifties, is that a thing? In the group. I heard this Taylor Swift.
Whatever.
Taylor Swift. I may or may not have listened to Taylor Swift when I was in high school. Before she was as big as she is today. It's just country then. I started to get into country. So everyone's like, oh, gross. Hey, that was an era too. Okay. But I'm wondering, like, 2 major artists have come out with some big kind of albums recently. Beyonce with her album and Taylor Swift. And I'm curious, have you listened to either? Do you have any opinions on either? What's your thoughts? Because your girls are Swifties, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Okay. And my daughter's becoming one, so it's getting.
As she should. It's fine. I don't really have any. Let's go to Beyonce because I'm not a really big Beyonce fan. Sorry.
Neither am I. I was so curious about her new album. I had listened to it.
I do. I've listened to a couple songs, and actually, I think we had this conversation before, but what it's done for me, I think for the Beyonce country music, it's made me kind of be more open to country. So finding other African American artists that do country. I've been following a couple on Instagram and on Spotify. I'll listen to some. So that's
got any suggestion? Because I've got one that I've been listening to based on.
I can't remember her name. I'd have to find it, but there is one on Instagram that I've been, and I guess she actually looks like Beyonce, so which is interesting. But yeah, so she's great, and then I'll find her name, and then as far as Taylor goes, I think what I've been hearing from my daughter say is.
Okay, so you have not listened to the Dead Poets Department or whatever.
I've listened to one song, but what they're saying is this is not the album that we thought she was going to put out. It's a little more pop, synthesizer.
Okay.
And they thought
maybe
and they thought
maybe this is the album for me.
Right. Well, and they thought it was going to be more of the third, the sequel to Evermore and Folklore. So I think it was supposed to be. I don't even know.
A little more folksy.
Well, yeah, that's kind of more alternative, but it's not. So it's different. And I think that's not what the Swifties were expecting.
Are the Swifties okay with this? I'm not sure. I don't
think so. I don't think so. I mean,
yeah, I haven't heard a lot of fanfare about it, to be honest with you. So, but I was gonna say, two artists. One I'm not sure would constitute as country, but male and female Black artists who are
you told me about
kind of country adjacent. War and Treaty. And I'm gonna say this: do yourself a favor. This is a deep cut. But there's a white country artist named Dierks Bentley. Yeah, you're like, oh man,
his name's Dierks
Bentley, baby. But if you can't find it really anywhere. You have to find it on YouTube. But Dierks Bentley did with 2 other cousins or sisters that performed with him and the War and Treaty. It's on YouTube, and it was from the Country Music Association Awards. They did a version of U2's Pride.
Okay.
And Try Not to Cry, because the War and Treaty, the vocal, oh my gosh, they can hit some notes I didn't know existed.
Okay. I think you made me listen to that before.
Okay. Yeah. And then I've been listening to a lot of Shaboozey from that. Shaboozey is on the Beyonce album, and he's got some he's kind of country hip hop adjacent in between. So just some really we are your DJs for the week, so go ahead and take a listen on whatever streaming platform you're listening to this podcast on.
I like so her name is Tanner Adele, and she I think she calls herself the Buckle Bunny or something. I kind of
I think I've heard of her.
Yeah, she's busy, but I like her.
I think Buckle Bunny is actually like just a generic term about like a girl
she uses,
because like a Buckle Bunny, I think it's just somebody who like rides around rodeos and tries to, attach themselves to the winners.
Got it. And then Viola Davis, like right when all the Beyonce stuff was coming out, she actually had a really good post. That's actually I found tomorrow, but she actually had a really good post, and she showed like 8 different artists that were country, that were Black, and I'm like, oh, that's good. And there was like a little clip of each of their videos with some music, and I was like, well, I can get with that. So there's another one that I like too, but I can't remember the name.
I was about to say, I think there's another one. There's another artist on Beyonce's album who I knew about prior. Brittany Spencer.
Yes, exactly.
She actually was starting to get some traction before Beyonce released her album.
Good. I think it's given
artists a good platform. Yeah,
I think so. All right. Well, let's bring in Lea Green.
Let's do it.
All right. We're done.
All right.
So I think I need to get someone next week for church, and then we'll be done, and then I could be the 4th person. The pastor's wife really wants to do it, so I need to email her. She's amazing.
Okay. So you do need somebody, or you don't need somebody?
I do. I need one more person from church, because it's a 4-week kind of thing.
So you're doing this is for your okay. I thought you meant like we didn't do like a mini. You didn't tell me we were doing a mini series within the series.
Stop it. So we're gonna do. All right, welcome back to Let's Chat About It. We have Lea Green here. Lea, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. So I'm Lea. I live in Tacoma, Washington, and I work as a school social worker. I grew up actually in the Centralia, Chehalis, Washington area, which is like an hour from here. So some kind of smaller town. And then went to Eastern Washington University and the University of South Carolina to do social work. And I've lived a few places. I've lived in South Carolina, Miami, Florida. I spent 2 years in St. Kitts, West Indies, so Eastern Caribbean island. I was a Peace Corps volunteer there.
Oh, cool.
And then I've done some other overseas work too that's taken me for shorter stints, but like 3 months and weeks and things at a time, to like Central American countries. So, and I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, Mikey and Jamila. So they keep me really busy, and I love to do salsa and other Latin dances. And I enjoy being part of our church. And yeah, so I'm also the regional director for my sorority. I belong to a multicultural sorority. So that is another busy part of my life.
All right, let's go back to Peace Corps real quick, because I'm totally interested. So I, back in the day when I was a little bit younger.
Is this another job that we didn't know about before, Lenora?
No, I didn't do it. I was gonna do Peace Corps. I actually had the application, and instead I moved to Los Angeles. So there's that. My own
You know, Lenora, there was like a 77-year-old volunteer in my group.
So I know. I heard they had senior Peace Corps, right?
I mean, anybody can do it. You can be any age. I did like 2 years of college during high school. So I was 20 when I graduated I was like 19 when I graduated from college, and like 20 when I got to Peace Corps. So it's like anybody can do it.
What did you do when you were there? Like, what was your responsibilities?
Yeah, I was a community development volunteer, and that pretty much meant like, here's this community, do some development work. I was like, okay. So
what did you end up doing?
Yeah. So initially I was at the community center a lot, like hanging out with the senior citizens. But once I started to kind of connect and get to know more people, most of the work that I did was with youth. So I did, at the high school, I was doing, at the time it was like HIV AIDS was really big. So I was doing a lot of education around that. And then like student clubs, like leadership clubs and things like that. And I did some after school programming and a lot of kind of just different little projects here and there, like camps and workshops and yeah. So it was great. I loved it.
Didn't regret it.
No, I loved it. I would love to actually do it again, but they don't allow families, so I'd have to wait till my children grow up.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, it sounds like you got a pretty diverse background of like, because for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with Washington State, Centralia, not a thriving metropolis. Cheney, Washington, Eastern Washington University, not a thriving metropolis. Columbia, South Carolina, a little different. And then Miami, Florida. Like, how did you go from, like, pardon my French, podunk Washington, podunk parts of Washington, to the places that you ended up? What made you kind of spread your wings and head across the country?
Yeah, it's interesting because I always wanted to leave the smaller town. Like, I never really felt like I fit in there, which is sort of the big question of the evening. But Eastern was really just kind of random when I got there, but I knew I wanted to go somewhere more exciting. And the Peace Corps recruiters came to campus, and I was like, I want to do that. And then because of being in Peace Corps, they had different programs for graduate school, and one of them was at the University of South Carolina. So that's how I ended up there. Miami was because my sister lived in Miami. Oh. So it was actually in between college and Peace Corps that I was there. So yeah, I just always wanted to experience new places, and so I was thankful to be able to leave the Lewis County area.
Is there one place you stayed in or lived at that you kind of hold a little closer to your heart in terms of just the experience you've had?
I mean, definitely St. Kitts, where I did Peace Corps. It's like I think about it every day, and I talk to friends from there often, and I'm always like, when can I go back? And I do. I have visited 3 times.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking at when can I get back?
Tell us about the sorority that you're involved in. What does that look like?
Yeah. So when I was in Cheney, I had some friends who were involved in sororities, and I kind of thought it could be a good option, but I just really didn't see one that was the right fit. So when I was in graduate school, I was seeing a lot of Greek life again. So I didn't join traditionally. I actually joined as a graduate member. Okay. And I was seeing all this Greek life on my campus, and I was still very young and like involved on campus and things. And so I kind of just said, does this thing exist? Like, is there a multicultural sorority? We have all these like historically white and historically black. Like, is that a thing? And that's when I found Theta Nu Xi, which is the organization I'm in. And I just really felt like it encompassed who I was and who I am. So we're based on sisterhood, service, scholarship, leadership, and multiculturalism. So really some of the same things that other organizations, but the part that sets us apart from the others is like that it's really values that part is multiculturalism. So joined as a graduate member, and that was in 2009. And so I'm at my 15-year mark this year. And then just a year ago is when I became the regional director, but I've done a lot of other roles within the organization. And it's been a very good experience for me.
That's so cool.
And so to declare, make sure I got that right. So you joined that sorority when you were at University of South Carolina, correct?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So like Greek Row, those houses are like mansions. Yeah. And then also the thing that was so, I guess, interesting to me was like the Divine Nine, like the historically Black sororities and fraternities. They would have chapters that were like hundreds of members, and I had never seen that coming from Washington State. Like we had sororities and fraternities at Eastern, but they were so much smaller. So when I got there and saw that, I was like, wait, maybe I should revisit this thing because it seems like a cool concept, but it wasn't.
I think it like the amount of like sorority license plate holders here. It's like you never see that in Washington. Like just like the I don't even know what they all are, but all the different Greek letters with the years. Like it's really, it does feel like it's a much bigger thing than back in Washington.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, we're gonna. How do you want to get?
We actually miscommunicated tonight, and it's my fault. But I just wasn't clear about things. So they have to be somewhere at 6. So I thought they were just going straight there, but then they were like, "No, we thought you were making us dinner."
Yeah. Someone's going to McDonald's.
Have dinner after. Like I started preparing it, but yeah. Maybe just grab some snacks and then I'll have dinner right when you guys get back. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is life. Yeah, grab some McDonald's or some snacks. So anyhow.
All right. So let me just make a note. I'll start us again at 10:20.
Okay.
For 10
Sorry
minutes in. No, it's okay.
I didn't even realize that we paused. I was just like being embarrassed, like,
no, you're fine.
Just roll with it. And I think we kind of finished that part of it, like that's. I think unless you had a follow up, Lenore. I feel like that's it. We could just roll right into the question.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, that big question. All right. So Lee, tell us about the time when you first knew you were different. What was happening for you?
Well, when I feel like I'm different in lots of different ways, and probably most of us are. But the thing that I immediately thought of with this question was the fact that I really do value and care about culture. So I was probably about 3 years old when I met some of my cousins who looked different than me, because they are biracial, Black and white. And I just remember thinking like, wow, I want to know about them. Like, why do we look different? And so just, that was my first very initial, like, oh, there's someone different than me. And then at some point, I think I was probably in the 3rd grade when I found myself like drawn to the people in my class who were different, and just like learning and wanting to, like, I want to learn Spanish. Like, oh, why does this student go and have different classes, like a student with Down syndrome? Like, I want to be friends with this student. I want to learn about them. So like, this was sort of just what I think makes me different, because I'm from a place that I feel like it's not that no one cares, but I feel like it's not very valued in a small town in Washington State. Like, culture and diversity and different people and differences just wasn't something that I saw being valued by others. And so for me, it was like, I think that's what makes me different, because others are different, if that makes sense. So that's when I first, started to think about.
I'm kind of curious, maybe you can paint a picture for some folks who may not be as familiar with the area.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in kind of similar, or not a similar area. I grew up in Olympia, so not far from Centralia. But do you want to kind of describe Centralia, and maybe in particular kind of the makeup of when you looked around your classroom? What did it look like?
Yeah. And when I was a kid, because it's been a while, it wasn't as diverse as it is now. But even then, we had I would say maybe like 10% Latino people and like 90% white people, and a sprinkling of other people here and there as far as racial diversity in the area, in that area. And what I was going to say before I got interrupted again, is my family, we would go places, so it's not like I never saw people who look different outside of like the family members and things. But I would say, can we move here? Like, can we live in Seattle instead of this place? Like, I remember saying that to my parents when I was in elementary school. Like, it was disappointing to me that we didn't have more diversity in our area, but also I just have always been really interested in others and other cultures. And so I think, again, like, because of where I'm from, it's racial diversity was lacking. And then I would say just politically, it's not that like a liberal area automatically means that like everything's great, but like politically it's really, I would say, conservative. And so for me, that some of that also can tie into like not being very accepting of like different gender identities or sexual identities, or just lifestyles. Just I found that a lot of people kind of had their life and that was fine, but they weren't really interested in being more open to others. And if that all makes sense.
That makes sense.
And I think everybody understands exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think those little towns exist in every state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're just everywhere, little pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in what kind of the first chance you get to spread your wings, though, you go to Cheney. I'm kind of curious about that, like, because in my mind, I mean, in my mind, college is kind of your first opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to stake my claim on the place because sometimes it's about the school, But sometimes it's about the place. You're like, I just want to go live in this community. So what made you make that decision?
Well, actually, I want to back up just a little bit to high school because when I was in high school, I did running start. So that's like doing your last 2 years of high school during college, or doing college during your last 2 years of high school. So basically earning a 2-year degree. And when I was there, I was able to be involved in our international club on the Centralia College campus. And I think just having that experience where like, yay, I finally like really get to like be more immersed and just learn about others in a real meaningful way. Like I was like, okay, cool. Like I can keep doing this. When I went to Eastern, like I saw that there was that presence and there was those opportunities. So even though Eastern is like another small town in the middle or in Eastern Washington, I knew I had to stay in Washington State because of like scholarships.
Gotcha.
But I found that at that school, there was still like a lot of opportunity to be able to continue to, be a part of something like that. So yeah, I was able to do that at Centralia College and like at Eastern. And I had a great experience at Eastern actually. I wouldn't necessarily want to live in Spokane like for my any extended period of time outside of college, but for the time, like for me, it was a good experience, and I got to continue to kind of thrive in the different things that I was interested in.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Nora, do you have what? No, I don't. So I'm the other piece I think I'm curious about is, because I think we've growing up in a smaller town where, as you kind of described, pretty homogenous in terms of the cultural makeup, but you had that curiosity to understand the different cultures. How did that kind of play for you as you were going through school? Like what was the experience with your peers, as you might have been sort of the odd person out and trying to seek out new people and new experiences?
Oh yeah, I was called a wannabe Mexican. I remember that. Yeah. I mean, and people just didn't kind of understand why I would branch into like out to be friends with, because to be honest, our school was segregated. Like you would have like a brown table and sorry, but that's how I could describe it. And basically it was like Latino kids and like other students of color at our school kind of hung together. And I was like, I'm hanging with them. Like, so that's what I did. And yeah, people made comments and I was just different and weird. And, but it's not that like our school was completely segregated. I mean, people did interact, but it was, the real close friendships that I had in school really were with the students of color at my school. And I would say there wasn't really a lot of white students who, I guess, branched out and to try to
bridge the gap.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately. Gotcha. So yeah. But for me, I mean, I learned Spanish. I'm bilingual. I have worked as an interpreter. So I feel really fortunate because I did take classes, but it's really because of like my friends' parents. Mm-hmm. One family in particular that I really spent a lot of time with, where I was able to, receive that gift of language for myself. And I'm like so thankful for it because it has helped me professionally, but like personally. And I just love that I am able to communicate with, so many more people this way because
exactly.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. I want to ask you a question, but make sure I feel like I heard some scratching going on.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. Okay. Just be careful.
It's probably just me.
Okay.
It's probably just me like being nervous or something. And
yeah, you're doing great.
You're doing great. Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to make a little note just because I can go back and delete. So I wanted to ask you about your husband, Michael, because I've heard him at church singing. He's so good. How did you all meet? What's the story there?
Yeah, so I had spent some time in Guatemala, and then after that, I was kind of like, "What's next?" So I went back home as like a 20-something-year-old, and I got a job as the international student advisor at Centralia College, and I just did that for like a school year. But when I did that, he was a teacher at one of the schools in Centralia, and I was doing host family recruiting, and I met him there.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. So he's lived in Centralia too.
Is he from there?
He is from Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a whole nother story there. All right. We're going to have Michael and you on together. It'd be kind of fun.
Sounds good.
And so I guess the other question I have is you mentioned that now you're a counselor in the school system. Is that right?
Yeah, I have been a counselor. Right now my title is social worker.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a social work degree, and some school districts will have you do either, but Tacoma wants only school social workers to do school social work and counselors to do counseling. So I'm a school social worker right now. I have been a school counselor too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of curious, like what drove you toward, you kind of had this background of, it seems like there's just generally a part of you that's just curious, but I'm kind of curious, what made you start to think about heading down this path, or was it even planned, or did you kind of fall into it, or is this what you were hoping for?
I kind of did a little bit. So when I got to Eastern, I was sort of late for registration for whatever reason. And I'd gotten like 3 sociology classes and an intro to social work class, just thinking that sociology was going to be more like, really empowering, helping people and supporting people. And I think some people with sociology degrees do that. But when I got into my classes, I was like, oh, wow, this is like a lot of theory and just not as interesting as I thought. But my intro to social work class was very interesting. So after like 2 weeks at the university, I went to an advisor and she said, let's switch all of your classes now. So that's how I switched my major, like 2 weeks into my time. And then I really liked it because it's a field that's like more practical. And there's a lot of like things about identity and human behavior and things like that. But it's also, we talk about policy, we talk about just tangible ways to help and support people, but also really there's a lot about like more empowerment, I think, and like, being there for people, but also like really just kind of guiding them and cheering them on. And I was like, that's cool. I could do that.
Yeah.
I love those
go ahead, Laura.
No, I just love those stories about like those epiphanies that happen. Like you take a class and you're in college, you're like, whoa. I think I had the same kind of thing where I was taking accounting and I was like, I am not a business major. So I literally I think like the next day after we got our first test back, my friends and I, we all switched our majors. We're like, yeah, we're not business majors. We're not going to do this. We're going to switch.
That was fun for a week. We're done.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
So I'm curiously how you're like this growing up in Centralia, all the kind of the diverse backgrounds you've had. You're like, oh yeah, Guatemala. I'm wondering what other countries you're going to throw out there that you've been traveling to, but all that background, all that experience has sort of informed and how you bring that to your work today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess in my current position, it's kind of open, like what I get to do with students. So there's certain things that I do have to do. So, like for example, I have to supervise some lunches. That's just what I have to do.
Fun.
Yeah.
But what grade? What grade are we doing?
I'm actually supervising kindergarten and 2nd grade right now.
So that's not bad. I thought you were doing like middle school lunch supervisions. It would be like the worst.
Yeah, I have worked at middle school and high school. I've worked at every level, but right now I'm doing elementary, which is a good fit for me, I think. So anyways, there's different things that I have to do each day. I do groups, like friendship groups, and I do lots of different things. But how I incorporate it into my work, I would say one thing that I like to do, because I am over the assemblies at my school. So I try to invite students to showcase their cultures at our school. So for example, on Friday, we had an assembly and we had 4 girls do a Khmer Cambodian dance, because Cambodian New Year was like last weekend, like about a week ago. And they, excuse me, so they prepared for a few months and we did like lunchtime rehearsals and they did a really awesome job. But it was also like sharing information about what it is and then doing the dance. But we've done that with lots of different groups throughout the time that I've worked at the school, and really representative of like who's at our school. So we have a lot of Cambodian students, and then We've done like Samoan dance. We've done baile folklorico. We've had like a Tongan, I can't think of what it's called, but it's kind of like where you're like doing different chants, hands movements and stuff like that. But some of that, and then also like right now is Arab American Heritage Month. We're doing like just little mini announcements on PA system. I have students reading about different figures in alive or from the past here in the U.S. who are Arab American. And I mean, just trying to think of new and creative ways to showcase people and their backgrounds, and really trying to be very, I guess, approachable by our families too. I think that's really important. So yeah, and showing community stuff too, so that they know like, oh, she cares about what we're doing too.
Yeah. I can't even imagine how much those students must feel like they belong there, just to have the opportunity to share their culture with other people and not be ridiculed, made fun of, all the things that little kids like to do. Even adults do it.
Well, and that's kind of what I was going to ask, Lee, is like when you do these events, when you give these kids kind of the platform to share their culture, what do you see in them once they've had that opportunity?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like a huge confidence boost. I had a student who she was on a step team in Tacoma and is actually on my daughter's actually on that team, but, and she's a 5th grader and she taught like 6 other girls how to do it. Okay. I pretty much just set up like, we're going to practice these days and I would come and help them.
I'll get you out of lunch. Come on.
Yeah. Basically I do that part and I like kind of help them fine tune, but really they do their own stuff. Like they teach each other. Or sometimes we use YouTube and things to get ideas. But anyway, I saw like her in particular, I saw her just like really become a leader. And it was amazing to watch her lead the other girls. But all of the kids who performed, I think they're just really proud of themselves. And then to see other students say, like to me, Miss Green, did you know that's my culture too? Or I've had other kids say, Miss Green, I'm Filipino. Can I do, like I can't think of what it's called, but like, the stick dance. And I'm like, we could look into it. That sounds good to me. So I love that it just kind of has like a ripple effect too, when the kids are able to do that kind of thing. It's really special. So yeah, I'm thankful that we've been able to do a lot of that at our school.
That's awesome.
What's next for you, Lee, for your career? Like, where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years? What are you doing?
Ooh, I've been thinking about this a lot, but unfortunately, I don't really have an answer right now. Yeah. Like, I've in all of my different jobs, because I've basically been, since I've finished school and even during school, I've worked in schools. So I've done like internships in schools, part-time work in schools, and I've been working full-time in schools since 2010. So it's hard to see myself outside of a school, but I guess no matter what I do, I just think that I want to stay connected to the people, because I don't really see myself like in administration or like consulting roles as much as like I'd like to stay connected to people. But I do see like a shift coming, maybe even soon. I just have to kind of see what the opportunities are. Actually, Michael and I had looked at this. It wouldn't have been like a full-time career, but we had looked at the possibility of teaching in Tanzania.
Ooh.
But when we looked at all the factors, it just wasn't going to work now. So I think either as a family or maybe just more like temporary kinds of roles, I could definitely see myself overseas again.
Yeah.
Like last summer, I spent 3 weeks in Costa Rica, and the family didn't go with me. I did a position there, and I may do that this summer, but if I do, it'll be in Ecuador. So that's exciting.
Oh, cool. And what would you do in Ecuador? What would the job be?
Have you heard of an organization called Global Leadership Adventures?
No. Have now. We're about to find out.
They have a lot of little ads and stuff, but basically they take groups of teenagers So they have some middle school programs, but mostly it's high schoolers, and they get to go for either 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to another country. And it's a combination of like a service project, leadership kind of curriculum stuff, and then also some sightseeing. So I've worked for them a couple of times now, and I like the organization. I think they do good work, and I think the students get a good experience. Most are American, but there's sometimes like when I was in Costa Rica, I think there was a student like from Guatemala who came, and then there's students sometimes from other places as well, but it's mostly American students that get to do those programs.
Is it mostly teenagers? Like you have to be 14 or at least in high school to do it?
Yeah, so most of their programs are for 14 to 18-year-olds, but they do have, I don't know about this year, but last year I actually worked on the only middle school program.
Okay.
So they had a middle school program, so you had to be, I think it was either 11 or 12 to 14 that you had to be to do that program. And so I was.
Are you doing that one again, or was that?
I liked the middle school years. But I don't know. I like all ages. Okay. I just like them for different reasons. I don't even know which age is my favorite. I just like to work with different people. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. So usually we ask this question about always, if you could go back to a younger you and give her some advice or some encouragement, what would you say? And I don't know what year you want to pick, because I know, you talked about like being at Eastern and being called some things, right? But then also when you were 3 and how you just was like, wait a second. So what would you say to your younger self?
I think, gosh, I had like some thoughts about what I would say to myself, and they've all escaped. But for me, it may be a little bit unrelated to what we've talked about so far. I think as a young person, I was so wrapped up in like what other people thought about me, and like just constantly trying to do things to be a people pleaser, and like thinking I had to be, like friends with everyone and like that kind of stuff. And now as a, older person, I'm like, hey, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I think I just would tell my younger self, like, it's okay to just be you. And if someone doesn't like you, you know what, that's their loss, or they're just not for you. So that's probably what I would talk to my younger self mostly about, is just kind of being confident in who I am, and not making it be about like what others think about me, and not making that influence a lot of like who I am or how I move through the world.
Awesome.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lee, for joining us and sharing your story. And let's see if we can get your husband on. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I think he would enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah, we look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Well, that was Lee. I feel like we've got a lot of similarities in the stories that we hear. I feel like her story, like what she said to her younger self, I think that's probably something I would have said too. Like, it's okay. Just when you're othered like that and like you're called different, then you kind of want to be the same.
Yeah.
Because you don't, at that age, you don't want to stand. Yeah. You don't want to be different. You want to just kind of blend in and just like, please don't look at me. But I think I would probably say the same thing to my younger self too. Like, be okay. Like, just like celebrate it.
Yeah.
Like, just be happy that you're different. It's okay. It's kind of fun.
And part of me, like the more I like kind of process what she said too, it's what Lee said. It's also this interesting thing where, she kind of, as she described, like sort of went out of her way to go and connect with different people. Yeah. Because it was her that's just who she, like, from a young age was like, I'm just kind of curious about you. We don't look the same. We don't talk the same. We don't have whatever experience. I want to know more about that. I just want to stay. I think to some degree, a lot of what our podcast is like, hey, I just want to know. I'm just kind of curious. Let's create a space for these conversations. but at the same time, it's kind of a choice, right? When you're a kid, like if I'm uncomfortable because I'm being called these things, because I'm going out of my way to connect with other people, maybe I should stop connecting with other people.
Yeah.
But if that's an intrinsic like curiosity, how do you wrestle with that? But I don't want to. I gotta know. I got this itch. I gotta scratch it. I can't just let it go, even when it's uncomfortable, because you're realizing like maybe I'm not gonna fit in, but I want to fit in, but I still want to go ask that. I still want to go meet this person and hear their story. And so I wonder how much kind of internal push and pull was happening for her at that age. But I think that curiosity sometimes, I think it's a good thing, and it can create a lot of inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, encourage your kids to be curious. I think that's the support them in that.
Yep. Yeah.
And all the things, not just academics. I think there's ways that as parents,
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I think the other part of it too is it's easy for us to just look around and find the person that looks like us, talks like us, dresses like us, and be like, safety.
I found my people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. And
easy.
It's the easy thing to do, but I also think that there's so much more, I'm not sure if this is the right word, like richness and depth to community when it's not that homogenous. It's
yes, I agree. Yeah, so, I agree.
Stay curious, folks.
Absolutely. That's it right there. That's the motto. All right. So we'll just see y'all next week. Take care.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
The Let's Chat About It video podcast, produced and edited by Lenora Sneva, invites listeners to share their stories. To participate, email letschatnow1010@gmail.com. New episodes featuring people like you and me are released every Friday. Thank you for listening and being a part of a community who cares. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Thanks for listening.